Washington's hotels are so crowded that rooms are rarely obtainable, and many a visitor has spent the night in a hotel lobby. Living quarters are hard to find, and it is common practice for war workers to live 5 in a room. They come from everywhere, attracted by the glamour of the nation's capital, the important and interesting people, and the desire to personally serve.
I arrived late one night. I had a reservation at the YWCA, and we had to check out early the next morning. But a girl, her name was Nan Brost, from Brooklyn, New York. We went out and we found a room that night. It wasn't an apartment, it was a room in a private home, but it had 2 twin beds. We each had our separate bed, and it was far from luxurious. I started working on April 4th in Washington, D.C. It was just a beautiful time of year. The cherry blossoms were out around the tidal basin. At first, they just put you in a big pool, what they call pool. There was about 30 or 40 girls. They were always, compiling little booklets of things. They made us walk around all day picking up these pieces for this little booklet. But then I was an assistant to the major and then colonel. But I liked that job because I didn't have very much to do. Really only had about 5 hours work a day to do. But I'd sit there typing these letters to friends, personal letters, but I would, on the surface, have the appearance of looking busy. I was just writing letters to everybody in the country, And I was writing 3 or 4 page letters to Mother every day. She really enjoyed it.
Happy days are here again, the skies above are clear again. Let us sing a song of cheer again. Happy days are here again. All together shout it now. There's no one who can doubt it now. So let's tell the world all about it now. Happy days are here again.
It took us 11 days to cross on the boat from New York to London. On the boat going from Parkston, England over to Esbjerg, Denmark, the waves are so big and so high that it just rocked that boat and it threw me out of the bed. That was my impression of the North Sea. It was a pretty rough sea. I took a boat over to Aarhus, and then the elders were there expecting me, and they met me there on the harbor. The first thing necessary for me was to learn the language. I got help from the primary children. When I'd start telling them Indian stories, I'd make these stories up. I didn't have any special story that I told. I sometimes would leave them with one kind of a explanation of an Indian village the next time, and I'd tell them something else. I'd make so many mistakes with my Danish that they'd just laugh, and I'd find out from them what I'd said wrong and how to say it right, and I believe those little kids taught me more Danish than the grown-up people did. We lived in the back of this church, and out in front were a lot of our members. And there was one I remember, a Sister Skov. She was an older lady, and they heated their stoves with this peat that they dig out of the ground. It takes the place of coal. She couldn't get her stove, they called them cackalones, and she couldn't get her cackalone going because she didn't have enough money. So we elders, we all loved her. If we had a little extra money sometime, why, we'd buy some peat and give her so she could heat her stove. She wouldn't have to sit in that room with all these shawls and clothes on her to keep warm.
I went with a fellow for quite a while who was president of the Young Democrats of America. He was a very handsome guy. He walked through there one day, and it was just like a Greek god walking through and all the girls looking at him, He had brilliant blue eyes and a lot of brown wavy hair, tall, slender, you know. But then there was a fellow, and he was in some intelligence section. He heard of me some way and requested for me to be moved to his section, and that was just terrible. There was so much work there, you just couldn't ever get it done. I didn't have time to write my personal letters at all. I just hated that. I really hated it. I was dating one personnel man, and I told him about the situation, and I said, I don't suppose there's any way of my getting a permanent appointment in a regular department, you know, and getting out of War Department. I don't know how they did it, but I got over to Department of Justice. My big thing back there was my missionary work. I wasn't back there very long at all before I was called to be a state missionary. Ezra T. Benson was the state president. They set it up so that we had one night a week on duty down at the chapel. They gave organ recitals just like they do at Temple Square. And then after the recitals, and the men would usually take the tours, the lady missionaries, they were all young girls, we'd more or less switch on and off the lights, that sort of thing. Sometimes people won't go talk to the tour guide, but a young girl switching on and off the lights, somebody will talk to or ask them little things, you know. They feel more comfortable asking somebody less important. So we served our purpose. But over in Department of Justice, several girls joined the church that I worked with. But we had a Mrs. Dwyer, who was strong Catholic, who was our immediate supervisor. She developed quite an intense feeling against me because I was a Mormon, I think. So finally, I got to feeling that I had got all of the converts I was going to get out of that office. I said, I think my work is done in Department of Justice.
When I got there, I bought this Leica camera. From then on, I seemed to take a lot of pictures over there. I have a picture of nearly every missionary that was in Denmark. In the summer, we'd go out in the country tracting. We'd go on our bicycles. Elder Bergerson and I were going up to this one farmer, and he was out cutting hay with his scythe. He looked over and he could see us coming up towards his house, and he lifted his scythe up and held it up high and started walking over towards us. And I said to Elder Bergerson, well, you go on up there and talk to him. So when I saw the farmer lower the scythe that he was cutting hay with, I got on my bike and went on up there, and then he finally invited us up to his house. We sat on his porch outside, and he says, I'll give you some coffee. And we said, no, we don't drink coffee, thanks. But he said, well, what can I give you? And we said, well, a cup of milk, if you have milk. He said, yeah, I've got milk. He had a can over at the side of the house, and I thought that I saw him pull a mouse out of that, a dead mouse out of that can and throw it away. And then he got us a drink of milk out of it and brought over, and so we drank the milk, and it didn't seem to affect us too much. But after that, why, if we ever went to visit him again, why, we just wanted plain water, nothing else. It was one Saturday afternoon, and it was our free time. It was in the summertime. We decided to go swimming out north of Aalborg, where the North Sea and the Bering Sea come together. And there was an elder there with us, and he got out there where the two seas were meeting, and there's a great undercurrent there. And he got into it, and he drowned. We had to have a funeral then for one of our elders. In Aalborg is the place where I baptized my first candidate. I remember there was quite a nice spirit there, and she got up off the chair after we confirmed her a member, and she had tears in her eyes and said, oh, it's wonderful to be in the kingdom with the rest of you now. Elder Jackson, Amos Jackson, was my companion there, and we lived above the little hall that we had rented to hold our meetings in. There was an attic up there where we lived, and before the meetings on Sundays, so we had to clear out the beer bottles and the cigarette butts, and then we'd get it ready for our meetings. I'd write maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. When the folks would get my letter, why, Mother'd always answer it and tell me what was going on around the farm, and anything new in Emory, why, she let me know about it. My folks were sending me $25 a month. After my little savings that I had disappeared, why, then they took over and sent me $25 a month, which we were able to live on. I'm a companion. We're going through a big store one Saturday afternoon. It was quite famous, and when you go in there, why, they have girls that will take you through, they can speak several languages. So she started talking English with us, and pretty soon her other little friend came over and joined her. They were showing us through the big store there. We could hear them talking to each other in Danish and understood them. And the funny thing was, this one little girl says, "You know what? These two are from America and they're very rich. Let's invite them to our apartment tonight and see if we can get them to like us and maybe take us back to America." And we answered them in Danish, and they were so surprised. And then I went to Copenhagen, and I became district president in Copenhagen under President Garf, who was our new mission president. I remember one time I went with one of the elders up in a little town of Helsingør, and up there was one of our members that was blind, and she couldn't ever come out. When we bicycled up to her house, why, we opened a little gate and started into the house. And when we knocked on the house, why, we heard kind of a wee little voice telling us to come in. And when we went in, why, she says, "When you came up to the house," she said, "I knew you were Mormon missionaries. I couldn't see you, but I could just feel your spirit, even through a wall."